Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with George for your match preview for Aston Villa against Leicester City in the Premier League. The games are coming thick and fast. Make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe button. Help us on the road to 5K. Yes, I know we've got 4,800 on there, but we're actually over the 4,900 mark. I think we need about 85 more to get to that big 5K. So we're so close. You guys can help us get there. Like, subscribe, and get your comments in, your thoughts ahead of Saturday's game, score predictions, predicted lineups, everything like that. Get in the comments. So, George, great to see you, mate. How was your Christmas?
Hello, Rich. Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, lovely Christmas. Ate too much, drank too much, same as everyone else. But yeah, back with a new year, and back with a bang, mate. And hopefully the Villa will start winning some games to put a smile on our face.
Yes, it's been a very, very good 2024, shall we say. Obviously qualifying for the Champions League, doing really well in the Champions League, but a little bit patchy in the league, particularly sort of towards the end of 2024. And I guess summed up with our Christmas period, a great result against Man City, our annual trip to St James's Park and our annual battering at St James's Park, and then a bit of a topsy-turvy game against Brighton where poor start, really good middle, poor end, which has been kind of summed up Aston Villa's sort of season so far.
Yeah, exactly right. It's probably 3 games that have summed up our year, isn't it? You know, the City game, we finally looked like the Villa of last season. It was the most Villa performance of last season that we've done this season by a long chalk. You know, absolutely battered them, played some great stuff. You know, 2-1 flattered City massively, and we could have romped that one. And then go straight into Newcastle, and that one goes horribly wrong, like it always does. Obviously I would wonder what might have happened there if Duran didn't get that red. But at the same time, I think we got overrun and physically battered like we always do up there. So that was no shock. And then the Brighton game, yeah, exciting, but been the story of our season, really. We can't put teams away when we're on top and end up getting pegged back. And, a draw's a draw. So win, lose, draw, mate. Inconsistent.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we've obviously got another home game, and it does seem like we're getting some sort of form at home. Maybe 1 or 2 too many draws for our liking, but I think it's 1 loss in 13 home games. It's nothing like the 15 home or set whatever it was home wins in a row. I don't think we'll ever get that, but an opportunity to get 3 points and get back to winning ways. And I guess, make sure that we're in that mix for top 6 positions because it's so tight in there at the minute.
Yeah, exactly. The home form's been, it's been decent-ish. I mean, you could have get away with a few of those draws if we'd have been a bit better away recently. But when you're getting pegged back at home and then losing the away games, hence why we're like 9th and not 6th. It's just been a bit of a tough one to try and stay in and around it, hasn't it? We keep getting up there one week, then the next week we slip back down, and it kind of feels like we can't quite get involved in the mix this season. But you just got to take each game as it comes, and there's a good chance of 3 points tomorrow. So depending on what the teams do above us, if we do win it, we're back up there again for a little while. So yeah, we'll wait and see, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Leicester, I like Leicester, and I think out of the 3 teams that came up, they were the one that I thought probably had the best chance to stay up, but they've had a bit of a turbulent time this season, obviously getting rid of their losing Maresca at the start of the season, getting rid of Steve Cooper, bringing Ruud van Nistelrooy in. He had an initial little bump, but it seems to have dropped off. What do you make of Leicester? What have you made of Leicester this season so far?
Yeah, a bit chaotic to be fair. As exactly the same as you, I gave Leicester the best chance of staying up out of the three teams, and it's probably them or Ipswich have both got a little bit of a chance. But yeah, with Leicester, the Steve Cooper thing was a bit of a weird one from the start. Employing a bit of a Forest manager who's their rivals. We've been there and tried that one. You take your rival's manager, mate, and it very rarely goes well, does it? Because the fans are not gonna have it. So of course that was what it was. And then Van Nistelrooy. I mean, what's the world coming to when a caretaker manager can have 4 games at Man United? And you can suddenly think, oh, he's now ready for a Premier League job. I just think it's an absolute punt and one of them fashionable ones that to try and get a bit in the spotlight. But Van Nistelrooy's done nothing really to prove he's ready for a relegation scrap. And something that's important for Leicester, financially, considering they've obviously just got relegated a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think I'm not sure they know what they're doing these days. But years gone by, Leicester have had a great decade, haven't they? But, even with all the success they've had, they've still managed to find themselves boing a bit, don't they? Coming up and down. They're a strange team.
Yeah, very strange team, but always a team that I thought, very, very strong at home. And I thought that, good atmosphere in the crowd would take them through a lot of these games. And it did threaten to be like that this season at times, but I was speaking to a Leicester fan on his channel earlier today, i.e. Friday, and he just said they've conceded way, way, way too many goals. And you've got to say that, Cody and Vestergaard at the back in the Premier League right now is probably not the best central defensive partnership to, in terms of mobility, in terms of what the Premier League is like now. And it's probably no surprise why they are conceding so many goals.
Yeah, 100%. Same as the other lad. Is it FaZe, the one with the big?
Yes.
The big hair?
Yeah.
I've just got looking back on the days when we was really struggling, and you've always got that vision. If you ever look at the Premier League years, you've always got that vision of Kieran Clark standing there with his hands on his back of his head as a goal goes in. And it's the same with this fella, this FaZe. Every time Leicester concede, you can see him there, hands on his hip or hands on his head after a silly mistake. And it's hard. It's hard now for these teams that come up because they just can't compete, can they? Now 3 come up, 3 went down last year. It's looking like there's a chance that could happen again. It just seems with every passing year, it's getting harder and harder to stay up. If they do manage it, you probably find they'll sort themselves out and they'll be better next year. But at the moment, you're just trying to fight to keep yourself above water. And tough season for them.
Yeah, I mean they're 3 points off Everton, so they're at 19th at the moment with 14 points, 3 points off Everton in 16th and Everton are on 17 points, obviously. And then it's Crystal Palace 6 points ahead of them and Manchester United 8 points ahead of them. But I guess one of the positives for Leicester is Jamie Vardy still, and they do score goals. They've scored the most out of the teams in the bottom 3 currently, and they've scored considerably more than Everton. They've scored more than Palace, and they've scored more than Manchester United as it stands. Wow. So players like Jamie Vardy, Mavididi, Jordan Ayew even, they have still got goals in their team, which does give you, is something for Aston Villa to obviously think about in the get ahead of the game tomorrow, but also in terms of Leicester, keeping their status in the Premier League as well. Because, if you're not scoring goals, that's always a difficult one to stay in the Premier League. But they do have goal scorers in their team still.
Yeah, completely right, mate. The evergreen Vardy, I mean, God, how old is he now? Must be 37, 38. He's still holding his own. Obviously, they could probably do with an upgrade in truth, but they obviously haven't been able to find it yet, or they can't afford it at the moment. But he's trying his best. But, you can't really be pinning your hopes just on a Vardy these days to try and stay up. He's done his bit for that club already, hasn't he? And more. So really, they need a bit more firepower in there. But, if they're scoring a few goals, they're doing all right. But as you said, Rich, they're conceding too many. So what can you do it's all good scoring 2 every game, but if you're conceding 2 and 3s, you're going to get beat as we're finding out ourselves.
Exactly. Now, on to Villa with regards to this game. Before we get the predicted lineups in and kind of discuss the difficulties that we've got in terms of the squad and the injuries and the suspensions, but I mean, how do you think Unai Emery approaches this game? Because as you said before, mate, the game against Manchester City was back to kind of the old Aston Villa, the early Emery, where we get off to a really blistering start and almost blow teams away right from the off. Brentford was a bit like that as well, but then we've kind of flattered to deceive against Brighton. I know we got the win against Southampton, but it was a bit of a huff and puff performance. Bournemouth was similar, not quite getting out of the blocks early enough. So how do you think how do you think we're going to approach this? I know what we should be doing, but how are we going to approach this game?
Well, looking at that Brighton game the other night, Unai, he likes us to be a nice team to watch, especially at home, doesn't he? And and there's nothing wrong with that. I think we approached that game right against Brighton. We just got a bit naive later on in the game. I think that sort of approach again against a team like Leicester we should beat them if we played like we did against Brighton, just simply because the quality of Brighton is they've got better players, haven't they? I think the way we played the other night would have probably blown the current Leicester team away. But obviously we're going to be missing Rodgers, aren't we, on a suspension? And most of our good work comes through him. He's the ball carrier. So, that's going to be a big loss for us. And it'd be interesting to see how Unai changes it. But, it looks like to be Mings and Konza at the back now, as we've heard the news that Powell's definitely out. And apparently there's an injury to Diego Carlos. So maybe that old school Mings and Konza, that's been a tried and tested defence for a long time for us. Obviously Mings has gone through the bad injury, and we just hope that his body can be up to it now, coming back into the side. But it might just simplify things, because that defensive line just change all the time. Now, if you've got Mings, Konza, Luca Dean, and Matty Cash, they can all stay injury free. Maybe 5-6 games of that will do us more good than harm.
Yeah, I agree. I take your point. Ultimately, it wasn't a bad performance. It's maybe a little bit chaotic, and I know you've mentioned that throughout this season that we seem a bit, chaotic. I've seen Twitter accounts saying that this is almost how Unai Emery wants us to be, and he wants us to get through this transition period to kind of master this way of playing. I do sometimes wish that Yuri Tillemans, I love his expansive passes. I love how quickly he looks for the killer pass, but I kind of wish sometimes that on 70 minutes he kind of stops doing that, especially if we're winning 2-1. Like, he doesn't have to look for the killer pass, on 75 minutes when we're winning 2-1. Sometimes he could just look for the, just keep possession and keep recycling the ball. But yeah, maybe that's an element of the game management that we might need to improve on a little bit, George.
Yeah, the thing is, it's strange though, because when Unai first come in, the first few games, that's how we were playing, and Unai was furious. Do you remember? Like, I think it was funny enough, it was Leicester who beat us. We remember we lost 4-2, and then we lost the same against Arsenal, and we were playing a bit like that, a bit like how we are now back then. And Unai didn't like it one bit, and it's weird that fast forward a year and there's no Douglas Luiz. That seems to be how we're playing again now, and the same sort of, we're shipping a lot of goals again, and it's playing the same as we were then. Last year, it was all about keeping control, quickening it up, slowing it down, all at our own pace. But now it just seems to be 100-mile-an-hour football, doesn't it? Down their end, lose it, they're up our end. And it's just basically survival of the fittest and who's going to score the most goals.
Yeah. Well, if we did put one or two of our chances away and have made it 3-1, and there's been other games, Bournemouth make it 2-0, kind of kill the game off, it's a completely different story. But obviously we haven't done that, and that's for the players to sort out. But in terms of, you mentioned Morgan Rogers out suspended, John Duran's obviously out suspended as well. The goal situation is an issue, because Ollie Watkins is the only player in our starting 11, most likely to be our starting 11, who has contributed a significant amount of goals. Everything else has come through Duran and Morgan Rogers at the minute. 0 goals from Leon Bailey in the Premier League, 0 goals from John McGinn in the Premier League, 0 goals from Yuri Tillemans in the Premier League, 0 goals from Jacob Ramsey in the Premier League. They've got to start stepping up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's damning, really, what you've just said there. Every one of them players really should be worth about 6 a season, in my opinion. You look at Bailey last year, probably was 9, maybe 10. McGinn probably always worth about 5, 6, isn't he? So I don't know whether it's the fact we're deliberately playing through Rodgers all the time and it's cutting the others out of the finishing the chances off. But yeah, you've got to spread your goals around, haven't you? I mean, it's been a weird season. Really, we've relied on a substitute to score most of our goals this season. You know, and I hate to think where we might be if there was no John Duran this season. So yeah,
Yeah,
they need to get our act together really, because if we can't keep him out at one end, we've got to start scoring a few more, haven't we?
absolutely. And Ross Barkley has come off the bench a couple of times and scored key goals for us. And if it wasn't for him, it would be even worse. And obviously, Onana has started the season off with a bang. He hasn't scored for a while, and we seem to have so many corners, and we just don't score from them. Like, we've scored a couple direct from a corner, but what I mean is, he's like, Konsa's not coming in at the back post with a header, or Torres, or Mings now. I'm just hope for, centre backs chipping in with goals as well. These are key, particularly sort of 65 minutes in the game where you could get a set piece goal and kill the game off. Like this is the sign of big teams that are able to do that. And I'd like to see Villa make more of the set pieces as well.
Well, it's funny. I think like the defence will not score no headers from corners because of the way we take our corners. They're all short corners, aren't they? And they're turned into moves. So if we kept our defenders up, we lose the ball. They're going to be up there too long, aren't they? And then we're going to get completely mullered on the
yeah.
transition.
But I mean, that being said, though, Ollie Watkins scored a goal from a direct from a corner against Fulham near post, and Ross Barkley scored direct from the corner against Palace. So it's weird because we try all these intricate moves, but the ones that set up a goal are the ones that we just put in the box that are ultimately good deliveries. And it's all about the delivery at the end of the day. It's got nothing to do with the moves. It's all about the delivery.
Yeah, I mean, look at Arsenal this season. They've got it down to a fine art, haven't they? They've just a load of players on the edge of the box all charging in at once, and no one seems to be able to deal with it. So, I'm sure not everyone can do that, because it's soon going to be worked out. Once someone works out how to stop Arsenal, everyone else will follow, won't they? But yeah, you've got to try and make the most out of your set pieces, of course.
Yeah. Well, and I say these are minor points that we're critiquing here, and ultimately, I think Unai Emery will be looking at this. How can we get more goals out of McGinn, Tielemans, and Ramsey and Bailey? How can we get more from set pieces? So this is all critique that would be looked at, because it was these type of things were flowing last season, which is interesting. And we'll look at the predicted lineup in a second. I'll bring up FOTMob's predicted lineup, see whether you agree with it. But in terms of Morgan Rogers, obviously he's been fantastic for us this season, and such a direct player, and there's probably refining to do. He's a bit rough around the edges at times, but sometimes a little suspension can come at the right time, and maybe the rest, because I doubt he'll start against West Ham. He may well do, seeing as though he's missed this game, but. We've lost George there. We'll just bring up the predicted lineup for everyone while George is getting back into the session. So we have preview. We have Martinez in goal, Matty Cash right back, Ezri Konsa and Tyrone Mings at centre back, and Luca Dean at left back. Boubacar Kamara and Yuri Tielemans in at central midfield, with Leon Bailey, John McGinn, Ramsey, and Watkins up front. That is going on FOTMob. Now, for me, I would probably say Amadou Onana needs to start and probably push Tielemans further forward instead of Jacob Ramsey, I would say. Maybe bring Ramsey in off the bench. Because I think Tielemans will do better work, I think, further forward. I like the physicality of Onana in that midfield against Samari and Winks. I think Samari can be quite physical. And as I say, Tielemans can play those balls and be a direct link to Ollie Watkins, John McGinn, and Leon Bailey moving forward. And then you can always bring Jacob Ramsey in off the bench. So that would be, for me, what I would do. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments, because be interesting to see, because we don't have a great deal of options with obviously the suspensions with John Duran, Morgan Rogers, and obviously the injury to Pau Torres. We don't have a huge amount of options, but That's what I would probably look to do. And I think, as George said, Mings and Konsa at the back will be, I think, a good throwback to years gone by. And Tyrone Mings' leadership, Tyrone Mings' voice is massive for us at this moment in time. The question is, can he last that amount of time? And if Diego Carlos is injured, then that brings into question, the likes of Sil Swinkles or Lamar Bogard, because we don't really have a huge amount of players to bring in. So this is going to be a real key time for Tyrone Mings to come through. Now let's have a quick look at the record for Aston Villa against Leicester, because Leicester have had a pretty decent record against Villa over the years, and 29 times we've faced them in the Premier League. They've won 11 times. We've only won 8 times in the Premier League. So a bit of a difficult record for us, and we've drawn 10 times. Now we've had only four home wins against Leicester in the Premier League. Last season, the last time we faced them, the double. This is our chance to do the double over them this season, because we beat them 2-1 already this year. But previous to that, when they went down, they actually beat us 4-2 at Villa Park. George mentioned that. And we beat them 2-1 with the wonder goal from Bertrand Traore went on our wonderful run. Before that, 0-0 draw at the King Power, and then a 2-1 victory against them. I think that was in Steven Gerrard's reign at Villa Park. But latest form, Leicester on a really bad run, 4 defeats in a row, including games against Liverpool and Man City, though. And I think they played very well against Man City by all accounts. So I think they'll be coming into it with a little bit of confidence. And Villa with 2 wins and a draw from the last 5. Obviously 2 defeats against Forest and Newcastle as well. So patchy form, as we've mentioned, patchy form. 9th in the table at the minute, Villa. Won 8 and lost 6 games. Leicester have only won 3. In terms of goals per game, we're about 1.5 goals per game, just under. But we're a 1.6 average goals conceded. Leicester over 2 goals conceded. So it's likely to be goals in this game and not many clean sheets about. So I think there could be goals. But George, you back with us?
Yes, sorry, mate, I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you fine.
I'm on the
Just
phone
there,
now.
just talking about our record against Leicester, and I guess from that, and I think they've been taking some heart from their performance against Man City. That they might be coming into this game, fairly confident they might be able to get something out of this.
Yeah, we're not the force we were last year, are we? Let's face it. We're still a better team than them for sure, but yeah, I don't think they'll be coming in thinking, oh yeah, it's a game, we might as well write it off. They're fighting for their lives, aren't they? So yeah, we'll have to be at it for sure, mate. It's going to be no walkover.
Yeah, and before last year, I was just asking around the Morgan Rogers question about, obviously he is suspended, gives Jacob Ramsey or maybe Yuri Tielemans the option to play further forward. Does a situation where a player gets suspended, does it give him an opportunity to have a bit of a rest? He's been massively used this season. He's been the key player. Could he maybe take this opportunity, whether he plays against West Ham or not? He could end up with pretty much 2 weeks worth of rest, which for a player of his age is quite rare and is probably needed.
Yeah, we've worked Rogers hard this year, haven't we? In some games it did show earlier on. He slowed down a little bit, didn't he? And you thought he was sort of like you looked like he needed a rest then. But fair play, last few games he's been back playing well again. But yeah, it is what it is, mate. He can't play, can he? So yeah, you've got to make the best of your time and hopefully rest up and get yourself recharged for the back end of the season. Yeah, I think we'll miss him because we are a little bit one-dimensional playing through him like 90% of the time, I find. So we're going to have to work out another way. As you say, I can see Ramsey coming in, sort of Ramsey going sort of over to the left and then Tielemans taking the 10 spot again. And it's kind of like for like, isn't it? Just hopefully Ramsey can last.
Yeah, it's a bit of a decision to make for Emery. FOTMOB on their predicted lineup have Tielemans and Kamara as the main central midfielders, with McGinn behind Watkins, then Ramsey off the left and Bailey off the right. I was maybe thinking that Onana would come in just for the physicality and maybe push Tielemans into where Ramsey would be playing. I think McGinn probably keeps his spot and maybe Ramsey off the bench. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that midfield.
Oh, well, it's Onana or McGinn by the sounds of it. That's the what I would make of that. Onana was, he had a bit of a nightmare at Newcastle, didn't he? And then did he? No, he made a mistake against Newcastle, didn't he? And not Brighton.
He made the mistake against Newcastle. I actually think he was. I think across the game, I thought he actually was the one midfielder who was competing physically with Newcastle, which you've always got to do. There's always the risk with Onana of the sloppy passes at times. But against Brighton when he came on, I mean, it was pretty awful, to be honest.
Off the pace, wasn't he? Yeah.
But it's difficult for a player to come on when you've just been pegged back to 2-2 and then being asked to try and turn the game around again. It's like those substitutions should have been made 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
That was a mistake on Unai Emery's part, in my opinion. But yeah, I think his game against Man City, I think he played very well. So I'd just be hoping. I would just bring him into that game only because he had a good performance in the first game against Leicester, scored a goal. I think that the way that they play in terms of their midfield setup probably suits him a bit more. And then that allows Tielemans, who I still think his better position is further forward.
Same,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I think going back to Onana and Kamara, you need to bed them two in as the regulars and they need to get their relationship going, because we were all raving about the idea of it, weren't we? And then and then the reality came against Man City, and they looked amazing. And then obviously not so good in the Newcastle game. But that's only one game, so yeah, that's what I'd be looking to do, mate. And I prefer Tielemans in the 10 as well. Have that protection, and then Tielemans has got the bit more of a license, hasn't he, to sort of roam around, a bit like Rodgers does, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to finish up in a second, mate. So guys, please do smash that like button and hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 5K, so close. Just over 80 needed to hit that 5K mark. So please please subscribe, and get your predictions into the comments and your thoughts on tomorrow's game. George, what do you think for tomorrow then? Let's get a prediction, score and scorers, please, mate.
Okay. I will go for a 2-1 Villa win, and the goals will be Watkins, and I keep saying Bailey because he needs to get one, so I'm going to back Bailey again to finally get off the mark in the start of January.
Yeah. Well, I've said 3-1, and I've said pretty much the same as you. Watkins, Bailey, and John McGinn to break his duck in the Premier League as well. So fingers crossed there. Thanks, mate. Great to see you in the new year. Hopefully for 3 points against Leicester. We'll be back later on this week with the match reaction. Hopefully after 3 points. Full match reaction with the boys, fans forum, talking tactics, and also our transfer talk roundup shows. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Thank you everyone for watching, and as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.